1 minute until showtime. One minute until showtime. Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Town, I can hear you.
1 minute until showtime.
Well, good evening. I'm on the air, basically, trying to put this out, this information about Tiendo, as usual. And I'm going to mute that. And if it comes across on the TV, we're lucky. It's going back and forth between live and off the air like it did last time. I can't help that. I'm not going to try to fix it right now. I have tried to work on it a little bit, and I'm going to use a new transmitter for the next show, but I haven't gotten it together yet for this one. So I'm just going to go on with this broadcast. I've recently, as of yesterday, made what I feel is a tremendous breakthrough in some parts of Scripture that I didn't feel like I understood very well. And for the people that are that do end up seeing it on the TV, I'm going to put the verse on the screen that I'm talking about. And that's Revelations 11. Let's see. Well, 11:7, which is and when they have finished their testimony, the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them, shall overcome them and kill them. I was always puzzled by this verse because how can the previous verse talks about how they have the power to basically stop their enemies. So how could they have the ability to stop their enemies? And then in the next verse, it's talking about
in school. We've all been pitching in around
what's
the house
that?
to help pick up the slack.
Oh, I think. So always got to be something going on here. I think I was just hearing an advertisement from my Heaven's Gatecast stream that comes and goes back and forth, on and off. I don't know what's going on with that. It worked for a while last week, tiny bit. It worked before that 100%. And I did all the testing. Anyway, I'm going to keep on broadcasting for the so the information is basically out there on the Blog Talk Radio at least. So how could they be overcome and then also killed, right? How could they be killed if they're going to be, if the previous verse says that if any man will hurt them, Revelation 11:5, any man will hurt them, fire proceeds out of their mouth and devours their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. The same word for kill is apokataino, as I've talked about before. Well, I finally got a understanding of what that word means. And I can't tell you how hard it has been for me to understand that word, because there are literally 6 or 7 words in the Greek that are all translated in the New Testament to kill and slay. But some have to do with actually killing an animal, like in a sacrifice to eat, which killing an animal to eat is also a sacrifice. I mean, they used most of the animals when they killed them in the Old Testament. They ate them and they used their hides and everything, so they weren't just wasting it. But anyway, it wouldn't have been a waste anyway if the next level was teaching the humans something by doing that. I think they did sometimes do that as well. So, but in any case, why, if they had this power, with apokataino actually meaning, primary meaning of it comes from apo, which has to do with separation or cessation, the ceasing of something or the completion of something. That's when it's used as a prefix. And that's the way it's used. It's used as a prefix, apokataino. So it's got to have some form of off, something taken off from, something removed from, taken away from. And so if kataino has to do with kill and slay, then you have the expression taken away from death, taken away from being killed or separated from death. Or what about this? Separated through death. Separation through death. And that's where I started to look at that, which also had to do with the way that the next level thinks about life and death is different than the way humans think about life and death. To the next level, life is a member in their kingdom. It's sort of like the way we think of plants and insects. Let's say insects, because insects are actually animals. And reptiles, I guess. You know, it's the same thing. It's all the animal kingdom. So the way we think about insects, let's put it on that level, is that their life isn't worth as much as ours. If it was worth equal to ours, then we wouldn't kill them. Even if they were biting us, we wouldn't swat the mosquito. Or we wouldn't use the pesticides on the plants to kill them. Or we wouldn't kill any bugs, for that matter. Because bacteria are actually, also some bacteria are actually a combination of animal and plant in their structures. Multi-cell creatures, and the ability to communicate is part of what defines an animal. And bacteria exchange particles. So they have a form of communication through the ion exchange of their particles. So, I mean, anyway, so I mean, there's no getting around the fact that we all humans put the animal kingdom on a lesser level of life than us. We're willing to sacrifice the animals for our own well-being, whether that's to eat them or to use their energy for service or to use their camaraderie to have somebody around that we like, or to use them as a watchdog. That's all. That's using them. That's making that they are subservient to us, and if we, and we provide them with what they get from it, which is a relationship with a being that is of an evolutionary strata above them, in many ways. And also, we a lot of times feed them and groom them and do all kinds of things for the animals. Now, for the insects, we don't do much for them at all, except, I guess, if we're good in our homestead, if we're growing plants, then we also provide places for the bees to have their pollen, so we have a healthy bee population, so they can populate the plants, and the plants can grow, and then of course the insects all take care of the deconstruction of all the material to make our compost, so that we can grow things better, healthier, and have more nutrients in them. So we're using that as well. So all kingdom levels are subservient to one another, and the kingdom level that's closest to being subservient to the level above human, that we don't even know about unless the next level helps us know about it by sending their representatives and teaching us that they exist, and showing us miracles and things at first to convince us that they exist and they're powerful, and they have the controls, and that teaches the genetic structure who's in command, so that when they send their next representative, the individuals that are growing from that, they recognize the same teachings coming, and then with updates, and then when they come again, as Tian-Do came as the two witnesses, the Father and the Son returning again, then they actually have students that when they blow their horn, when they announce in public through their bodies, through their mouth, through their words, who they are, that they came from outer space, and that they're here to bring fulfillment of prophecy and updates to the Bible, and that they actually are fulfilling the prophecy of the two witnesses. When they say all those things, all those that have been in that vein tend to either gravitate to that information, or even believe it, or even are willing to offer services to those members, whether they're actually physically incarnate with us, or whether they have already left their physical incarnation, which is the case right now with Tian-Do. So, I'm basically saying here that the separation and the next level thinks about life and death. I want to get back to that, as life in their kingdom, because they're growing all these kingdom levels in order for some to evolve to being able to recognize who they are and gravitate to offering them service, so that they can actually become eligible to be in a training program, so that they can learn the ways of the next level, so that the next level, when they actually bring them into their kingdom, into their environment, onto their spacecrafts, can actually function for them, because they don't need anybody to sit around and watch TV all day, okay, or do whatever they want to do. They want individuals that want to grow, that want to serve, that want to be a part of the whole process, like a Star Trek organization, a crew that are dedicated scientists, dedicated to their tasks, whatever their tasks are. And science, in their terms, involves everything: science of mind, science of body, science of the geology of the planet, the science of the physics of the way the universe works. All that is part of it, but you can't learn all that all at once. You have to start at the ground level with the next level. And you can go into any department you want to go into, but you have to qualify because they don't really need us. So for us to qualify, we have to prove to them that we really want to do it, because they can make humans all day long. They can make billions of humans on a planet. All they got to do is create the environment and then plant the seeds, and basically the humans grow, and they start propagating like insects, and then they act like animals until the next level actually decides to help stimulate their growth. And they do that by actually including the ones that have dropped away from their program. And those are the Luciferian space aliens. They're the fallen angels. They're where the Anunnaki came from. That's where the Nephilim and the giants, giants in terms of perhaps in their size and their stature, but also because they were taught by the Luciferian fallen angel space aliens some of the tricks in the human kingdom that they could use to better themselves and increase their stature and their ability to recognize the reality of the spirit world and how to use it in their favor. And that's where all the tricks come to psychic development and channeling and everything like that, which the next level didn't really approve of, because they want to be the ones to set the standards of when those things are taught. That's why the next level wiped them out at one point, although allowed a certain amount of them to exist still within their underground bases. But they wiped out the humans that those fallen angels propagated on the planet, because they've ended up becoming so violent that they were basically killing everybody, killing each other in order to have what they wanted, because they became so egotistical and so arrogant and so full of themselves. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Sounds like what's happening right now. Well, it's true. That's what's happening right now. That's always what happens when the fallen angel, Luciferian space aliens, and all the space aliens are Luciferian space aliens, even though they don't recognize that, and even though they don't have horns and pitchforks and tails. That's a bunch of Hollywood baloney that the Luciferian space aliens actually promoted to take us off the track of who they really are, because they're really promoting the whole New Age agenda. The New Age agenda is, has the good characteristics, which are next level characteristics of peace and love, but has the negative characteristics that are Luciferian characteristics, that is that I can do it all myself. There's no external anything above me. I am a God within. I am part of the Godhead. The Godhead is in me, so I can be a God, which is all a bunch of baloney, a bunch of Luciferian imagination, because everybody dies. Nobody's keeping themselves alive very long. Even all the New Agers, all the gurus, all the big shots in all the mountaintops in the Himalayas, they're all dying. They don't have eternal life. And they can make it seem like they have eternal life by saying that eternal life is actually after they die, and that's where you're really going to have your freedom. What a bunch of crock that is. That you're going to have your freedom after you die, which is the same bunch of crock that the Luciferians fed the Christians. That if you follow certain guidelines and lived a good life, and you were good to your neighbor, and you gave to the poor a little bit here and there, and you didn't kill anybody, you didn't steal from anybody, and you believed in a savior, whether that was Moses or that was Jesus or some human that was saying that they were the Maitreya, the Buddha or the Maitreya, the enlightened one, or that when you died, then you would go to heaven or Shangri-La or Utopia, or you would have or heaven would come about on earth, because the more people that would do that, you would have the 100th monkey, to where when you got to the 100th monkey, then all of a sudden everything would change, and instead of having all these people having evil behavior, killing each other and stealing from each other and deceiving one another. Everybody will be living in peace, like John Lennon talked about, to where there is no sky and there is no outer space. There are no planets, because that's what heaven meant. Is no heaven. When he was talking about actually imagine there's no heaven, imagine there's no Christian heaven in the illusionary terms. So in that way, I support John Lennon's song, that imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. Well, yeah, it is easy if you try once you wake up to the fact that heaven was an illusion. But as long as you've received that saccharine information, that is artificial information, the pseudo-heaven, then you become a believer in that form of drug. That becomes a drug. So religiosity becomes a drug. Spirituality becomes a drug. Food can become a drug. Drugs can, plant life can become a drug. Everything can become a drug. Sexuality becomes a drug. Everything becomes a drug in the human kingdom, because the Luciferians want us to be addicted to the human kingdom and our sensuality. And it's not that those things are wrong. Those things aren't wrong. What's wrong is if we think that we're going to actually get to be enlightened and get to a place to where we're above all this, and that we can actually have freedom for the first time and have individuality for the first time and be somebody that is associated with the creators of this planet in a real way. If we believe all that, then all those things are actually basically evil to partake in if we want this other. However, the next level is tolerance and understanding, and they know that we've all been brainwashed to think that a normal life on the planet consists of waking up every day and doing the same things over and over again, and raising our kids and doing all, which is all fine and wonderful, and it is strictly mammalian behavior, and it actually is the training ground for future members of the next level. Because remember, the next level provided all this. They didn't provide it for us to get involved with so that it could basically take us away from the next level, but they wanted us to give us the option. They wanted to give us the option to show us what it is, and they show us what it is by giving us the ability to genetically evolve to have everything we want in the human kingdom. And pretty much in most of the United States, most people have been given an avenue, especially in the last 40 years, an avenue to have what they want. Yeah, they have to work at it, and some have to work harder than others. But because a lot of them were given it on a silver plate because they were doing it, because their ancestors were doing it before some of the other ancestors. Like, for instance, the black and brown slave populations, or yellow slave populations in the United States, for instance, and in other countries as well. But in the past, in the history, there were times when the blacks had light-skinned slaves. I don't know if they were as light-skinned as the Caucasians in America, in North America right now, but all the roles have been reversed throughout history, throughout generations, and throughout civilizations on the planet, because there's been more than one civilization on this planet. So, so basically, at this point, we've all witnessed Tian taking the third trimester students through the program and out the program, if we've been paying any attention to anything that they taught. If we haven't, then that's our own problem for not understanding it and not seeing it, because you have to stay with the information. You can't just look at it briefly and expect to glean everything there is to get from it. I mean, you can follow everything that's happening on the internet. There's tons of stuff happening on the internet that is interesting, okay? But none of it is going to get you to the next level. And if you don't want to go to the next level, that's fine. It's wonderful. It's perfectly an option. But then don't complain when the axe falls, and and things are going bad, and and then at that point, you don't know which end is up, and you're wondering, God save me from this, because next level is going to say, like Jesus said, that where were you when I offered you what I have? How come you didn't want to pay attention then? You only want to pay attention when everything's falling apart. Well, the next level has a way of helping us even with that. They let things fall apart very slowly. And they show us all the signs of it falling apart as we go. And it's intermittent. It's gradual, and it's happening in different places in the world. And things gradually escalate, getting worse and worse. Well, it has to get worse and worse because the next level is trying to break through our programming that we are living in a utopia, basically, as many of us are. I mean, let's face it. I mean, in the Americas, and in Europe, many people don't have to do anything to subsist. The government takes care of a lot of things through the taxes. Okay, and and people can find ways of making enough through all different ways of living, through art, through helping others, being in the religious movements, and even helping the poor. You still get taken care of, by your congregations. So life can be pretty easy, really, in the human kingdom for a large part of the world right now. I know there's a large part. I'm not talking about in numbers. I know for a large part of the population, life is very hard, but at the same time, for that same large part of the population, they didn't become accustomed to all the things that humans in so-called first world countries have become accustomed to and have come to expect about life. And because of that, because of what we've come to expect in our comfort level, which is a mental comfort level as well as a physical comfort level, if we lose, there's a lot of people that if they lose their house, they'll go kill themselves. Where in some parts of the world, losing their house is a regular routine. Their house might not be a $200,000 house, or more, that they've still got to pay a mortgage on, and all that. So it looks pretty depressing. That maybe it's constructed out of logs or sticks or bamboo or thatched hut, and materials that are not too hard to come by. But and they don't have to pay all the taxes and have to pay all the fees in order to live on land, and in order to be able to work the land. And that's one of the benefits of living in some of the third world countries. You don't have so much, but what you find a lot of times, those individuals also have access to the technological world with their cell phones and computers and things like that, and yet they're still living in environments that are not nearly as so-called sophisticated and advanced as the environments we live in. And frequently they're living in environments where the weather isn't so hard to deal with. They don't need to be surrounded by a building to keep them away from the elements when it gets to 0 degrees out, like it is today where I am. Anyway, so I mean, it's all relative. So when it comes to that, so the human kingdom in the so-called developed world, which has become developed technologically, but and in a sense developed mentally, but also degraded mentally, because can you imagine like a parent raising a child to a certain age, and then they get off on their own, and then they even forget that they had parents. They don't even pay any attention to them. And when they talk about where they came from, they don't even really remember, because they've become so into what they're doing, and their science and their intellectualism and their say, oh, my parents, they didn't do anything for me. I don't even know. To me, they don't exist. That's that's what it's like to the next level, who set all this up for the humans to grow, and then now you got humans that walking around, they think it's that it's foolish. They think it's silly, it's naive, it's sheeple. They think they make a laughing stock out of the idea that there are beings that are greater than them. They think they're the top of the heap, and they think there aren't any other heaps. And you're going to call that intelligence in this world? When you look up at the stars and you see billions of other suns that have billions and billions and billions of other planets that now through our science have forms of life on them, because we know that forms of life exist right down to the molecular structures that you cannot see and cannot be detected through, but you can see through colors. See, the next level even provided a color scheme associated with light, associated with life in the electromagnetic frequency range, that all elements have embedded in them, that animate all of them. Everything is animated by the next level's energy, the next level's light. And that's why it's called light. Whether we're talking about light as I see the light, I'm enlightened, I understand something, or whether or it's light as you shine a flashlight into the room so you can see where you're going. Because it is all originated from the same place. And so that's the other side of the coin, to where now the New Ages are equally against the idea that there are beings that created us, designed, developed, maintained our environments and our potential for growth, and even the option to go away from us, to look away from us, from them, not us. I'm not one of them. I mean, I'm trying to be one of them. I'm trying to give service to Tiendo, and I'm not sure I'm doing a good job, but I think I'm somewhat on track, although I can easily get off track, and I can't count on being on track. But if I ask for help, I'll get it. I know that. So if I don't ask for help, whose fault is it? So anybody that's listening to this, it's understandable. I read a comment from somebody on my Facebook page that said that they don't feel like they're ready for the next level yet, but they feel like they're in that direction. They're going in that direction. And what I said back was that belief is a huge part of the steps. And belief is actually paying attention to everything they said and did. And that means paying attention to everything Tiendo said and did, because they are the biggest reflection of, not just reflection, they are the biggest injection of truth and reality. Truth and reality are the same thing. There is nothing that's true that isn't real. So when someone says something's true, it doesn't mean it's true. We all know that. And we got lots of people saying that they know the truth. And just reading scripture is fine. You're telling the truth. But if those words have been manipulated to where they mean something else, then you're not telling the truth. You're actually spreading false prophecy, because you're spreading lies. And those words in scripture, what they meant when they were said was total truth in the language that they were said, if they came from members of the next level. that came incarnate. But if they didn't come from members of the next level incarnate, then they're not truthful. However, the next level has been working with the planet and civilizations in the past for a long time. So there's a lot of real information and true information that is perfectly true and perfectly from the next level that was provided that we don't know how it got here. Like I talked about in the previous broadcast, that the planet was seeded with that information. I think the way that the planet is actually seeded with that information is by providing spirit. Remember, spirit is synonymous with mind. Mind is the content of our thoughts as recorded in our brain into our genetic structure. So our mind is our genetic structure in its frequency structure, its frequency format. It's similar to the way that we are communicating right now through frequency structures. This information that I'm saying over the air waves is remotely getting to you. It's coming out of my mouth, and there's no wire actually wired into my brain. It's an analog system, but it's being picked up by a digital system and then transmitted through a carrier frequency, formatted into a series of frequencies that can communicate and interface with the other computers that carry those same frequencies and those same formats. And the same thing with brain waves. Brain waves also have formats, and they're transmitted and received by humans, although humans can't depend on receiving them accurately. Some can more than others. But it has to do with how close we are to the genetic structure of the brain that's doing the transmission, and how close we are to the mind, the quality of the mind that is, when I say quality, I'm talking about the vibrational quality of the mind. In other words, what their bead is on reality. If we never think about things in outer space or philosophical things or imaginatory things in terms of how they can be real, then we don't raise our vibrations to being able to perceive more of where those things came from. So we have to. So in order to understand the thoughts that I'm transmitting right now, we have to become accustomed to what those words mean. So we have to basically establish, initialize, in the computer world that would be called initialize, our programs with the data, so that the program will know when it receives this frequency that it means this, and when it receives this frequency it means this. So what I'm doing with these broadcasts is over and over again I'm providing new programming. So when I say the word heaven, I'm not talking about a state of mind or a Shangri-La or a utopia or a place where God is alone. I'm saying I mean those things, but I also, what also comes with it, with the Tian-Do update, is that, which is also the Jesus update, was that I'm really referring to the physical heavens as well. So it's the literal heavens, which is the sky, the atmosphere, the upper atmosphere, the near space, the solar system is all the near space, and then the outer space, which is, and then other galaxies, the entire universe, potentially. And that includes all the unseen parts of the universe, which you can think about in a more dimensional framework as being the spirit world, which is not seen, not felt, but exists. And so it's a different dimension. But it's all still part of the same universe. There are no multiverses in the sense of any more than there's the fact that there are multiverses within the grand universe of physicality. It's all physical. Even frequencies, well, maybe I should say it's all frequency, and then it's all frequency with physical physical interface. Maybe that's a better way to say it. I don't know. I shouldn't try to get too technical because I'm not capable, but I'm not versed in that. But I understand enough about it to, I think, make some sense to anybody that is versed in it, if they're willing to put aside some of their imagination of what they think they know. That has to come in terms that they can only learn in a university. If you have to go to a university to learn about reality, then you're only learning one potential part of reality. So, which is fine, and it can have its benefit, of course, in the human kingdom, but it won't get you closer to the next level. In fact, it tends to take you away from the next level because you tend to then depend on your own, what you've accumulated. And so you then become somebody that is looked up to by others, and then you're really kind of being taken away from the next level because you're so fearful of losing that status that you have for the way you think about yourself, your ego, and the way others think about you, which also goes hand in hand generally with your income and supporting your family or your business and all that, so that you become totally entrenched in yourself and your own world, and therefore which all has to be eliminated to actually become a member or student, even become a student in the member of the next level. You like Jesus said, thank you. He was thanking his older member, was in terms of a parent, a father, pater in the Greek, Abba in the Hebrew or the Aramaic. He was saying, thank you for revealing these truths and these mysteries to these that do not have this intelligence. Because that intelligence gets in the way. I see it getting in the way of people all the time, but I'm willing to stick with it with anybody that wants to stick with it and try to help them through it. I'm not that good at it, but I think I'm getting better at it because I keep on looking for the coaching of Tiendo as I go through it with individuals. Because following Tiendo is not following a religion. It's the furthest thing from a religion. Because religion is now a killer of souls. And the soul isn't an imaginary object or premise or idea. It's a frequency-based object. Just like a computer is a frequency-based object, just the humans just don't know how to take the hardware away from it, except when they're actually transmitting it somewhere else. But imagine if you could transmit a frequency that would basically stop at a certain spot and create a bubble. And I guess you could imagine this as like a hologram. To where you saw in that movie Star Trek, and probably a lot of movies by now, not Star Trek, but Star Wars, where that R2D2, I think it was, or the R2D2 shot that laser out of his little eye, and you saw a figure of the Princess Leia standing there talking with him. So that would be like what the next level can do, and humans can even start to do that now. I think they are starting to do that more now with holographic images with light, but that light doesn't do anything. Which the idea comes from the holodeck. That's where that idea came from. It came from the next level. The next level actually they send their mind literally to an area of the universe, and they stimulate the beginning of an environment that will be the beginning of an environment that will be able to be formulated and organized and grown into a planetary system with its universe within a universe within a universe, as we see through the atoms going around each other, as we see through the up until the macro of the solar system planets going around each other. So that's where you have multiverse. You see it right within. We see it within and without. So but the next level, older members, I don't know how old you have to be. I'm not trying to say that T wasn't one of those older members. I don't know how many older members there might be that have more experience than T, but who cares? What difference does it make? T was about as far as you could get in your imagination, understanding what somebody would be like by being incarnate, and Do equivalent, actually, in terms of being incarnate in a human vehicle, because there's only a certain amount of mind that a human vehicle can handle. And that's why T burned out her vehicle. But it was planned that T would burn out her vehicle ahead of Do. Do was burning out his vehicle also. So I believe that he did have to leave, or his vehicle probably would have expired soon thereafter. And I know there's been some rumors that he had cancer, and I actually researched that to see where the rumors were. But I don't doubt it. I don't doubt that he would have developed cancer like he did in her eye. I don't know if it would have been in his eye or not, or brain, because that's the way that information comes in through the pineal gland, is receiving information, and also the other glands are receiving information. But the next level, T and Do taught that the light from the next level, the information from the next level, was coming in through the top of the forehead. And I believe that's where the pineal gland is. That's where the third eye came from. So what T did actually is she burned out her third eye, which actually put a cancer in her eye that a couple of years later ended up being in the liver, and then took her out in 2 weeks because she didn't want to try to. She didn't. I don't think she went back for any tests after she had the eye removed, even though the doctor told her that the cancer was probably spread throughout her body. I don't know. Do didn't talk about it, so I don't think she did. I don't think she was feeling like. Well, what she said actually was that if she wanted to, she could heal the body. At least I was told that that's what she said in a meeting, which I don't remember actually that. Or she could get another body if she needed to, which I believe 100%, that the next level could have prepared another body. They have backups for any situation because they don't know how the humans are going to respond, and but they can provide protection. But it also depends on, to some degree, what the incarnate members do, because even the older members have free will. So if they move too fast, they can get in trouble. And an example of that is those said that Jesus made a mistake. Oh boy, now I hear it. Jesus made a mistake? Well, let's face it. Jesus is the first one to say that when someone said that he was good, he said, don't tell me I'm good. There's only one that's good, my Father in heaven. Well, if he wasn't good all the time, then that means he was missing the mark sometimes. That means in his mind he was not living up to the standards that he knew his Father had for him all the time. By his standards. Now his standards, I believe, were probably mountains ahead of the standards of his disciples. And might have even been mountains ahead of the standards of the students of Tian-Do. It all has to do with the incarnate next level member can only, they only stay a step ahead of their students. Because if they get too far ahead of their students, they won't relate to what the students need to go through in order to come up to speed in the understanding and the control over their thoughts and body. Because that's what overcoming is. Overcoming is the same as conquering, is the same as prevailing against, which is the definition of an Israeli. An Israeli is really, as it was meant, is he who prevails as like or in the way that Jehovah prevails over their challenges, over their humanness, over their prevails against the human kingdom that they are working against. That is their cocoon. That is their womb. All that human kingdom is a fine kingdom, a wonderful kingdom. Those said once, when people said, what if everybody stops having sex like you're teaching your students? And then I'm not going to talk about that actually, because it's not going to happen. But no, what I'm referring to is in the Beyond Human series, where Doe says he was given the question of, what if everybody decided to join you? Everybody in the world. And what Doe said is, no, that would deplete the human kingdom. And the human kingdom is a stepping stone. It's necessary. The human kingdom is necessary for the next level, for next level membership. And that's why Tian-Do compared a human to a caterpillar and a horse and a dog. And horse was a biblical comparison, but that's not where they stopped. They compared it to a caterpillar because they were talking about how the next level would give that caterpillar a seed that would stimulate their motivation to actually become a butterfly, which is the deposit of a soul into the human body, which is like attaching a balloon onto the brain at the pineal gland, for instance. I don't know if that's exactly where it's attached. It may be more general than that, or maybe just the brain maybe is the portal to it. But it's alongside the mind of the human being that has a balloon, which is the mind of the human, which is attached to the brain. So that whenever you have a thought, basically whenever you see something and you remember it, basically it's going into that database. It's actually being encoded in the brain, which is the hardwire part of the computer system. You know that brain has billions and billions of cells that are that each have their own little database associated with them, electromagnetic form. So it does. So that bubble that I'm talking about doesn't have to extend way away from the body. It can even not even be away from the body more than, you know, a little tiny bit. So maybe make a little glow, aura. That's where aura comes from. A little glow around the heads, but you don't see that around. You don't see a white glow around somebody unless they're a next level member, because then their eye is single, and then their whole body is filled with light, and light is white. Don't get confused between white and Caucasian. The reason Tian Do came into Caucasian vehicles was, I believe, not only to fulfill the prophecies that they gave, but I believe because the genetic strain that ended up getting lighter and lighter skinned, perhaps because of the anthropology of migrating to the north and being indoors more. I don't know, perhaps related to the diet as well, you know, gradually, however that happened. Ended up being the biggest mutt, the biggest combination of all the species on Earth. That that the Luciferians put the most programming into as well. So therefore it became some of the, not the entirely the hardest, but some of the most challenging vehicles to overcome, but not exclusively, because there were individuals that were blacks, and there were individuals that were from a brown heritage, and well, I mean, you know, there's no way of you'd have to go through the genealogy of all those individuals, and what you would find is that we're all linked to the same species of human that came from whatever the next level used when they planted the species on the planet for the next go around, which they can do by just saving actually like a couple of them, or like saving Noah's family. Easy to do. They can provide a way to be assured that Noah and his wife are going to live, and they can make it so that Noah and his wife can have babies when they're, you know, 100 years old, I guess, if they want to. I don't know how long Noah lived, but others lived to 900 years. I think Noah lived pretty close to some of that too. So the next level they can easily make a genetic strain just by taking a couple, you know, maybe just by taking one and crossbreeding it with another from the mortals, or I don't know, just the way it was depicted with the Adam and Eve story. They can actually construct the body from scratch. And, you know, it doesn't mean that they don't do that by growing it, because they have the seeds in stock. They probably have a warehouse full of seeds. But then again, you could say they don't need a warehouse full of seeds. They got the Earth. The Earth becomes a warehouse full of seeds, or Mars, or some other planet. They've got probably 100,000 warehouses full of seeds. Anyway. I want to check something. I don't know if they got. Can you in Heaven's Gate Cast? I see you there. Test. No, I haven't done any tests today, but oh, I see. I'm responding to someone in the chat room of my US stream, just so that they know. Anyway, I told them how to get to Blog Talk Radio, so if they can see the chat room, then at least people can go to Blog Talk Radio and listen to this. And I'm recording it. Hopefully it'll come across okay in the recording, and then I'll run that recording on US Stream and see if that'll work that way. I'm going to get around this one way or the other, even if I have to get a better computer, but I don't have the access to a better internet connection until maybe the fall. And then if I can, I will definitely get that so that I can do these broadcasts as many places as I can, manage to set up, and that Diode can help me with setting up. Because there's a lot to say, there's a lot to talk about, there's a lot of perspectives to understand, and it requires, regular experience with it, or you lose it. If you don't use it, you lose it. So, I don't know if I crossed enough T's and dotted enough I's and opened enough doors and closed enough doors, and but I'm going to go back to the prophecy. And if any man will hurt them, no, I wasn't at that one. I used that as an example. But the one that I did want to change, which I'm going to go back on my screen to, is 11:7. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. Well, let me just make sure that everybody understands who, what, when, where, and how the beast is. Like I said last time, the beast are all the humans that, whether they know it or not, have been influenced to put forth the agenda of the Luciferian fallen angel space aliens, which includes all the space aliens. They're all Luciferians because they're all the descendants of fallen angels. Whether it's on this planet or on a different garden from a distant planet, the Pleiades or wherever they came from. The next level allowed them all to come here through a wormhole so that they didn't have to have any more significant method of traveling or a body that could actually live that long, or deal with the G-force that it would take, which I guess the next level probably doesn't deal with either, because they have physical bodies on their spacecrafts, and they probably come through wormholes because those wormholes apparently don't have any G-force. That's what makes them wormholes. They're vacuums. It's the way people, scientists used to think space was just a vacuum. They thought it was empty. That's why it was called space. They thought there was nothing in it. That tells you something about science, right? They can be sure or positive that there's no other elements besides what's on the periodic table. Oh, yes, absolutely, it's impossible. Oh, it's impossible to go a bit faster than the speed of light, until they get the idea of a wormhole, and they're bending, space is being bent It was the way Bob Lazar described it, and people in science now are actually seeing the truth of that possibility, that you could actually exceed the speed of light by not being subject to it, because because of this idea of actually, as if space, what we're calling space, outer space, is a grid. If you looked at it as like a grid paper, and that basically you actually it's in waves. It's like a waveform, and so basically, if you can take the parts of the wave and you can bring them together in their waveform, then what on a linear, if you stretched out that grid, it would be millions of miles, but because of the way that it's actually bent and actually touching then at certain spots in these waves, then basically that creates a portal between those linear positions in the matter, in the space matter, which is that framework, that fabric of space. Yeah, that fabric, that's an interesting idea. There's something in Scripture I need to go back and research about that, but that kind of, I think in the Old Testament, related to the fabric of space, or the fabric of heaven, or something like that. Anyway, so how does the beast actually use humans? Well, two ways. Two ways they use humans. Programming them to what to believe in, what not to believe in, what to put their mind into, what not to put their mind into. I guess the same kind of thing. And the other way, which can be religion, or can be anything. They could tell you that you should believe in Jesus, but only if people but don't believe anybody that talks about Jesus that doesn't use your terminology from the Bible, doesn't quote Scripture from the Bible exactly as it says in the Bible, doesn't even use the King James Bible. Don't believe them then, because then they're not speaking the truth. That's a Luciferian mindset on how religion then becomes the opposite of what the next level wanted it to be, at the same time as it becomes an option to not believe in the next level. Thus, free will. That's why the Luciferians are allowed to be here. Because if the next level didn't want them here, they wouldn't have allowed them to exist in between recycling of whatever part of the planet they were recycling, or whether they were recycling the whole planet or not, in between civilizations. They know where people are burrowing right now underground. They know where the space aliens are underground and under the sea. They know where they are. They can do all kinds of things. They can to surface them. But they do things generally. Well, I'm not going to get into that. But the other way that, so they influence us. Now, that influence that I'm talking about in terms of belief and all is primarily done through discarnates. Dead humans, also dead space aliens. Dead Luciferian space aliens. I mean, the fallen angels all had physical bodies that eventually died because they couldn't live forever. That's why the space aliens have these programs to try to create new bodies from the human species that they have, and the ones that they've been able to keep alive from the human species that they propagated when they were in their underground bases. Because you can bet dollars to donuts, if that's a good expression, that that the humans now that are building underground bases are taking sperm banks with them, and are taking plenty of females with them, so that they have eggs to put that sperm into, so that they can incubate new bodies to move into. So that when those humans die, when they're in that underground facility, the spirits that are with those humans, many of which were actually probably soul implants by the next level that didn't grow, didn't germinate, or germinated a little bit and then fell away by going towards a Luciferian space alien program, like a New Age group of some sort, instead of what Tiendo were teaching, and ended up, or a religious movement of some sort, and ended up, being in an underground base when a certain amount of catastrophe was taking place on the planet. And so they were surviving. So they were then trying to propagate the species to stay alive. So they had all the babies with them, the babies that from all the people that were given the address and the means to get to that underground base when some kind of natural disaster or some man-made disaster was taking place that they wanted to escape from, that they might have blamed on space aliens or blamed on some other country, some nuclear holocaust, or some pestilence in terms of some some warfare with germ warfare or something like that. Anyway, so when they die and they're in this underground base, when they die, they believe all the same things they believed before they died. And so they actually would basically be hanging around. They have no place else to go. There's no place else they want to go. They might not even be allowed to go anyplace else if the next level doesn't let them go anyplace else. Because the next level has ways of putting gates on different places in the 7-layer local heavenly spacecraft that is docked on the Earth. So then they would begin to, they would be looking to help the humans that are in that underground base, whether it's their offspring or their friends or their colleagues, to keep on surviving, to keep on living, and in order to know how to do certain things that some of them might not know how to do, that they learned how to do. So it raised the kids. Okay, so then the kids grow up having the same beliefs, because they probably take their computers with them, and they probably have their the solar arrays on the surface. If they don't have that, they might have the nuclear generated power packs made with nuclear cells, if they can figure out a way to do that safely, which I think they do know how to do. That would actually be powering a lot of their systems in order to be able to grow food to some degree and to sustain the environment, which the environment, I guess, wouldn't be too hard to sustain underground, because the Earth stays pretty warm when you get it to a certain depth. But if they wanted to, you can just imagine that they make modules that can be many floors down, and have places actually to dock their spacecrafts that they've developed, and the humans are still rushing to develop spacecrafts. But don't forget, they were given spacecrafts by the space aliens, and the next level allowed them to have whatever spacecrafts they got that the next level used to crash, because the next level, when they came here, gave all the space aliens the option to go into their program. I'm not sure how they communicated that, but Tiendo talked about that there were people from different planets that were given the option to that had physical bodies, but some of them may not have had physical bodies. I don't know exactly, but they were given the option to sacrifice that physical body in a crash so that they could basically prove to the next level that they were serious about wanting to go into a next level program, because the next level was then going to give them another physical body anyway when they graduated, and the next level was going to see to it that they had a physical body on Earth that they could occupy, take over, incarnate into. Incarnate had to do with incarnation, had to do with being incarnal. Carnal is Latin for flesh. So they were given that option, and the ones that didn't take it were basically thrown down to earth. Now, I want to actually talk about where that took place, throwing down to earth, because it's in Revelation chapter 12. This is after it talks about the Father, T, where it says that she's the astrologer, the great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun. Sun represents the Father. Also, light represents that her body is filled with light. And when it says clothed, it means the body that's wrapped around this person is given the light, or has the light with her. Doesn't mean it's necessarily filled with that light entirely, because the meaning of the word, let me change screens here. Oh yeah, no, it's just, that doesn't come through. The meaning of the word see, with isn't even in there. So it's she being, no, I'm sorry. And there appeared, this is Revelation 12:1, and there appeared a let me see if I can copy this to my blog talk radio chat room. There's nobody, but never can tell if somebody will come in there. This time I was able to do it because I used the other method of copying and pasting. So, so there appeared a great wonder in heaven, talking about the heavens meaning outer space, but if it's appearing, which is actually literally seeing, something that you can see, well, I'm not going to try to go to that detail right now, but I could bring all this up with Strong's Concordance. But it means that the humans can see it. So when they say when appeared a great wonder in heaven, that's generally going to be a comet of some sort that's going to show up as a sign. And then a woman clothed with the sun, of course, you're not going to see that in the comet, but it will be when they say it's a great wonder, that's what differentiates an ordinary comet from a great comet. And a great comet is one that can be seen with the naked eye, because the next level wants the humans to see comets with the naked eye that they want them to see, that are actually a sign of some sort. So if you look at all the comets in history that were great, you can bet your bottom dollar that they were signs from the next level, because they weren't just willy-nilly great. So a woman clothed with the sun, like I said, sun astrologically, which T was an astrologer, but not an astrologer like a human. She wasn't doing it professionally to make money. And she wasn't doing it also to tell people where they could find a better lover. She was doing it to help people with their growth. And you might call it spiritual growth at the way she was thinking about it at the time, because spiritual growth is growth to help you become recognizing of the characteristics of the next level. And that's kindness, peacefulness, that's having empathy, it's being considerate, it's being wanting to serve, wanting to help others, wanting to understand where everything came from, willing to change our ways to be a better person in our own eyes. All those things are considered to be a path to spirituality. And if you look at all the spirituality cultures, all the religions that are all basically spiritually based, spiritual has to do with the non-physical world. That's what it really means. If you actually go to Revelations chapter 11 and you look up spiritual, which I'll do later maybe, it'll say non-physical. So it has to do with the mind. So, and the moon is under her feet, which is another depiction of astrology, with the mother being the moon being representing the mother, and also the woman. So you've got the father and the mother, father and the woman, male and the female. You got them all represented by this one person, who is a woman. And actually, when it says you see in heaven a woman clothed, that to me actually what that really is saying is that the clothing that this individual is wearing is a woman's clothing, because Tian-Do talked about clothing in prophecy and all throughout, through the New Testament also a little bit, but mostly through the Revelations. Clothing was a way of talking about the physical body, and Do used the term that he had a vehicle that was wrapped around him. He identified himself with the mind, equal to the spirit, that occupied the soul. But it was a different kind of soul than the kind of soul that a first-time member is given. The kind of a soul that a next-level member, an older member, is given is just it's a different type of unit. It's a different kind of container. So they're not actually taking over a human vehicle that could become a member of the next level on its own. But they can give a human vehicle a soul whenever they want to. So nobody has to wonder whether they have a soul or not. It's whether or not you want to grow. That's going to determine whether you got a soul or not. If you don't have any interest in any of this material or anything else, well, I'm going to say if you don't have interest in this material, then you don't want to grow that bad, because the other material doesn't really offer you that much growth. It offers you information, but it doesn't offer you a link with the only two that can actually give you real growth. All the other stuff is good for the humans that need that to get to where you are, if you are somebody that is paying attention to this information from Tian-Do. Like Tian-Do would say, it's what got you to the top of the mountain. But once you're at the top of the mountain, if you're just satisfied by staying on the top of the mountain, and you're looking at everything under the sun as if that's going to yield more growth, when you already know or already have received the information that the only way off the top of the mountain, to grow further than the top of the mountain, is through Tiendo, and you believe it enough to where you want to pay attention to it a little bit, then you're fooling yourself to think that you're growing by staying with the information on the top of the mountain, except in a way of keeping your enemy close to you, or keeping your challenges close to you. Like a good friend of mine said to me the other day, he was watching this video because he wanted to, keep the other side. He wanted to understand what they were talking about, and I'm all for that. And I'm all for everything, actually. If somebody wants to do it, fine, do it. I'm just trying to say, don't fool yourself to think that you're getting some kind of amazing growth from doing that. But then again, maybe you need that. Maybe it's not your time to have more of a focus. I'm not the judge of it. So I take it back if I sound like I'm being a little preachy there. I've made plenty of mistakes too, and so go with your heart, go to where you're led, and as long as the thing is, asking is the key there. Asking for the next step, and asking can be, for different people, it means different things to the next level, because it's not asking me. It's not about asking me for anything. You don't need to ask me for anything. If you want to ask me a question, answer to a question that I might be able to provide, fine. That's understandable. And Tiendo are, I think, all in favor of that, because they don't have. That's why they've given me and others the opportunity to talk about them, so that we could provide answers to questions that they already provided in one way or another through their writing or through all the time spent with them. For the individuals that are doing this, like Carlin, that spend time with Tiendo. And there are others that are potentially spreading Tiendo information as well. I just don't know about it, except for individuals that are running the Heaven's Gate website. So in the way that they're keeping that website alive, I don't know what else they might be doing, but they're spreading information about Tiendo by keeping that website alive. So the heavensgate.com website. It's run by two former members that I know well, because they were longtime members. But that's the only relationship I have with them. If I have a question for them or I want to bring something to their attention, I give them a call or whatever. But we have no working relationship together. I don't get anything from this, and they sell some tapes over there, and they sell some books, and I think it's all Tiendo information, so it's all valuable. But it's nothing that you can't get for free that I can help you find for anybody that wants it. Just send me an email or a message on any of these chat rooms or whatever, and I'll point you in that direction. I guess I should tell you, since I'm recording this, and I might broadcast it, that my email address is Sawyer, H as in heaven, G as in gate, at yahoo.com. And my blog is sawyerhg.wordpress.com. And I've got a YouTube channel that is actually, the channel name is 3 as the numeral 3, SPM, as in Stone People's Movement. And I've got a YouTube channel that is actually, the channel name is 3 as the numeral 3, SPM, as in Stone People's Movement. And I've got a YouTube channel that is actually, the channel name is 3 as the numeral 3, SPM, as in Stone People's Movement. which that's a silly way of saying it, really. I'm not going to go through the history of that. But SPM as in Sam, well, I already said it, so I don't need to say it again. But we have posted lots of videos, you know, that some of them may be of value to people. And there's a lot of tapes of the audios from TND, though, still on the 4 shared, the numeral 4 shared, SHARED.com. I think you have to kind of, I forgot the exact address, but you search around for it. And then there's the Heaven's Gate cast, that if you go to US Stream, it's a TV channel, a TV broadcaster, which I'm trying to stream to now, but isn't working so well. But if you go there and you become a follower of that, then you'll be alerted when the broadcasts start. When I get this fixed. And also Diode is also broadcasting tapes of Tiando and Beyond Human series on that channel, different times. So if you become a follower, you'll be notified when he starts that going. And I'll be doing these. I continue to do these broadcasts there at that time. And on Blog Talk Radio, of course, if you become a member of a follower of this channel on Blog Talk Radio /Sawyer SAWYER, then you'll be notified whenever I start a broadcast here. And my Facebook page is Sawyer Heaven's Gate, spelled out like that. Which I don't remember exactly how you write the actual address. Maybe it's Sawyer, might be SawyerHG.Facebook.com. I'm not sure exactly. Or SawyerHG.HeavensGate.com, maybe. I don't know. I have to get that one in my memory better. Okay, well, I'm not going to even try to stop that channel there. I'm still not broadcasting. It's been an utter failure. I don't know what's wrong with this thing. But hopefully the recording will come out okay. So I still got 28 minutes. Let me not deflate my balloon totally here. Take a little drink of water. Okay, the next verse. Well, that woman has a crown of 12 stars, but that's one of the reasons I know that this is an older member of the next level. This is the father. This is the father. This is the same individual that was Jehovah. And 12:2, and she being with child, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. The child she's giving birth to is dough. She's waking him up. That's the kind of birth that he's experiencing. It's and it's being born, and that's what happened when they met. She woke him up to his task, and then stayed with him and got him going. And she always said that to him, that after she got him going, she was going back, she said. And Doe didn't understand what that meant. He thought it was strange. He said, he told us that he wondered if she meant that she was going back to her human family of her ex-husband and the children that she had raised, mostly. I don't know how old they all were, but Terry was, I'm sure, a teenager at that point. And but when she ended up leaving her body in 1985, he knew what she meant then, that she was going back to the next level, her next level position. She was always in the next level with her mind, but and Doe said that her mind was so large, if you say, or so big, or so grown, or so old, or whatever, however you want to describe it, that that she was actually serving on the spacecraft as the older member for the waking up of the vehicle that was going to be named T, that was named Nettles, Bonnie Nettles. And Bonnie Nettles talked about when she was a nurse in the preemie wards, but she was also a nurse in other wards. Preemies is where the babies are kept alive to, when they're premature, born, and they have to be kept alive. That was her specialty, but she substituted for other nurses all the time, and that's why she met Doe. She was actually substituting for another nurse. And what T told us is that she would actually look to what she considered to be her spirit guide, who she called Brother Francis. And I believe that was taken from Brother Francis of Assisi. And you might want to get the movie Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon, which is a movie that T and Doe shared with us, which is about that individual. Apparently, she wouldn't have brought that to her attention unless that was a task that was done, that was stimulated by either the invisible presence of T and Doe when they came incarnate. I'm not sure what year that took place, of the St. Francis of Assisi. Maybe it was well before they were incarnate. I'll have to research that. But she would look to that individual every time she would put a needle in someone's arm, like to take blood or to give them an injection of something, so that she would be sure that she would hit the vein on the first try. That's a pretty dedicated nurse. I mean, every trained professional knows how to do that, but some veins are very hard to see, and some of it's hit and miss for some people. And anybody that's been in a hospital knows that sometimes they have to try a number of times to find a vein. But she wasn't so overconfident with herself that she didn't want to get the assistance of what she believed to be another individual who she just couldn't see, who she looked to as her guide. So that shows that even before she had awakened to her task completely, that vehicle was very much awake to the reality of the spirit world, and she was a student of Theosophy and Madame Blavatsky's materials and the Ascended Master materials. So she had all that in her computer. And so basically then the reason why she had that in her computer was so that she could talk about it to us, and that she could also take from it the parts of it that were the more accurate aspects from the parts that were not that accurate, that were the parts that the Luciferians ended up infiltrating into. And like I said, the Luciferians were coming to the humans through the discarnate world. They've been doing that ever since the Adam and Eve story, or at least until since the beginning of the civilization again after the flood. Because I don't know if, they would have been around, because they would have been hovering around wherever the underground base was, where the Luciferian space aliens were allowed to go, so that they could be brought up again later when they were needed to provide the fertilizer and option for humans to grow in the different directions. So it becomes their sparring partner. Tian-Do said that each of the students was actually assigned to one of those to be their sparring partner, even though the individual sparring partner didn't know that they were assigned. The next level knew they were assigned because they knew that those individuals wanted to try to steal those students of Tian-Do away. They wanted those souls away into their camp. So they would have tried to get them out of the classroom of Tian-Do, and then once they were out of the classroom with Tian-Do, they would basically start to program them with belief in some other direction that was going to be more akin to what they believed in. And that could possibly include space aliens, or it could include just the cosmic consciousness or the universal mind idea, all that etheric delusion of grandeur and delusion of the spirit world hierarchy that exists for sure, no question about it. But it's not the next level. It's not the high. It's not off the mountain. It's just at best it's the top of the mountain. But in reality, because of the venom, the poison that they put out, which is basically false teachings, teaching lies, teaching delusion, and teaching that they are the superior beings, the Elohim, like Rael is teaching, that he's been in touch with, the space aliens that claim to be the Elohim, although they don't create planets like the Elohim in Genesis created. So doesn't he see through that? They don't create planets. They said that to him when he was on there. Maybe he didn't recognize that was a kink. And maybe they didn't recognize that was a kink. Or maybe it was that's what they believed. And so he was just repeating what they believed. So he was being honest about what they told him. But he doesn't see how that differs from calling themselves the Elohim, which has to do with, is the plural of supreme beings or judges or captains or admirals or the leaders, the ones that have the say over the planet and over all the life forms. So that's part of the distortion. So anyway, and then in Revelation 12:3, which is still being broadcast, and there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. Now, red dragon is definitely talking about the Luciferians, because dragon and serpent is the same depiction. And this is also the depiction of the beast. The beast in another place in Revelation is described as having 10 horns, 7 heads and 10 horns. So, in another spot, it talks about the 7 crowns. So, which I've got some more work to do on this verse. But what I was saying before is that the next verse is where they're actually thrown down. After Tian-Do gave them the option, well, during the briefing that they had, that he remembered having. She didn't dream it, and she didn't feel like she received it through a vision. But she remembered, what she said is, I remembered being in the briefing on board a spacecraft in the next level environment, not on the Earth somewhere. And in that briefing, she said there were a number of individuals that had physical bodies. I believe she was in her physical body, and so was Do. And the physical body that she had, not the Bonnie Nettles physical body, because that was the body that she came into with her mind, but the physical body that she had before all this, possibly the physical body that she had when she was serving as the father, and maybe the one that she was using to serve as Jehovah, that she let Moses actually physically see, the side of, the shoulder of. And that Jesus might have been the physical body that Jesus was allowed to see when he went to the Temple Mount and received instructions to lay down his life. And that after which he actually pleaded that he didn't have to do it, which is in a sense, saying, do I really have to do this? That's kind of like a weakening at the moment, wouldn't you say? Although the weakening was natural to the amount of mind that he was allowed to bring into that vehicle. It doesn't mean that he hadn't overcome his humanness, but he might have said that for the students that were sleeping at the time, even though he felt it at the time. Because the next level, they don't make things up. Like he wouldn't have went to the garden and then told his disciples to stay over here while he prayed and told them to pray, and then he walked a little bit away from them, and then he started to pray, and that I guess it didn't say whether he said it out loud or not. That would be a little key to what I'm talking about. But he did say things out loud at times, and he repeated after it. He said, "This was for you to hear." And also his father said things out loud that the disciples could hear at times. And he said it, and Jesus then said that was said out loud for you, talking to the students, which I think is what he said at the Transfiguration Mount about what was said out loud. In addition to showing up as two individuals in bright white raiment. Raiment had to do with clothing. They were dressed in bright white, shining clothing, which a next level vehicle could very well look like. That's the way T had Al-Odi draw a next level vehicle as a white vehicle. And they took us to that movie Cocoon, and they thought that was a pretty good depiction of what members of the next level might look like. And members of the next level probably can fly. I know they don't need their legs to walk around. They don't need legs necessarily at all unless they're doing a task that requires legs, like if they were going to come onto the planet's surface and relate to humans, or they're incarnate workers. Then they might want to have legs so that the humans that might see them see that they are humanoid, because humans were created in the image of them, and that meant primarily what they looked like. That's their image, is what we see, is what they meant. They're created in their likeness and image, what we see. So that's when his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven. Okay, so and cast them to the earth. So basically, at that point, that those potential space aliens that were given the choice to come down into the Tiendo program to overcome the world and then graduate into the next level body that could no longer revert back into humanness, like the Watchers did, like the fallen angels did with their bodies. The ones that didn't choose to do that by crashing their existing flying saucers in order to give the humans proof of their physical existence, and also to allow the detachment of their soul from that human body, human equivalent body, because it wasn't necessarily an Earth human body, but the human equivalent body, basically a mammalian type of body, and a reptilian body would also be a mammalian type of body. I don't know if they have, I don't know about the reptilian bodies exactly, but I have some theories about it, but I'm not going to go into that part. But so that the souls, once they came out of those bodies through the crashes, could rendezvous with a human vehicle prepared for them, but being given a certain kind of a homing device or a certain kind of an implant, the next level type implant, which is not like the human implants and not like the space alien implants of little beads and things like that that have been reported. So they could have an implant, and then they could actually, when Tian Do started talking publicly, which is like, it's actually the blowing of the horn, the trumpet, they would be right there with the human vehicle that was genetically prepared, and prepared also by potential dreams and visitations from that individual that was considering using that vehicle to actually take it over in order to do this task of overcoming the world as a servant of the next level, providing service as they do it to Tian Do, and then graduating into the next level vehicle where they can provide even more service on board spacecrafts. They were in the right place at the right time, and everything was in order, and they had the choice at that point. That vehicle could have chose to say, no, I don't want to go with you, or yeah, I want to. It's exactly what I'm looking for. I want to go lock, stock, and barrel into this program, and I believe in you. I know who you are. I recognize you. You're my shepherd. I know your voice. I don't care what you say. You know, they wouldn't say this necessarily in their heads, but they didn't have to go through an evaluation. I didn't have to go through an evaluation of you know, like, well, how do I compare this with the Hare Krishnas that I had some association with years before? Or how do I associate this with the Sufis that I used to dance with and pay attention to what they were talking about? And how do I stack this up against the Christians that talk about the Bible and being saved by the blood of the Lamb? How does that measure up to that? You know, and the Christians that came out of the regular Christian community that were considered to be the Jesus freaks that you know had their differences with the organized religions. How do I measure up with that? Or what about UFOs? You know, how does that stack up? I mean, do I believe in UFOs? And if I follow them, am I going to become a space alien? You know, am I going to end up going on a UFO? I mean, and what about spirits? They talk about discarnates, invisible humans that influence us. What do I believe in that? Even, you know, see, that would have been like evaluating it to decide whether I wanted to join us or not. And I would have done that. I mean, I did that in general. Overall, I mean, I didn't even have to do that with all these other groups. Like meditating on the picture of Sri Chinmoy with my friend that was a Sri Chinmoy disciple, and he wanted to get me and my girlfriend at the time into it, and he was a musician I played with, you know, to get him into it. So I meditated with him on his picture, and I thought, who is this guy? You know, I'm meditating. What am I? And then the meditations I used to attend, where I didn't even know what I was meditating about. It didn't make any sense to me, even though I was reading the Bhagavad Gita and I was studying Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda's materials, and I wanted to be enlightened and all that. And so I was going in all those directions, but none of it seemed to, just didn't really taste good. I didn't have a good taste to it. It didn't feel good. It didn't smell good. It didn't, anything about it was not something I wanted to do. But when Tian Do came around, I just had to hear a couple words from them. And all of a sudden it was like, okay, let's go. And I wasn't naive. I'd been living on my own, away from my parents for 7 years. Ever since I was when I went to school for 1 year, college in West Virginia. And then ended up flunking out because I was dropping acid all the time. And I hated the Vietnam War, and I thought I was going to have to try to escape to Canada. So I was talking about that at the time. And then I got a high lottery number, and I decided, so I didn't have to worry about that. But then I still went to Canada, and ended up hitchhiking up to Canada, from New York up to Canada, down to Vancouver, down to British Columbia, and then down to Tijuana. And I met up with people I knew during my high school years who had moved out to California during that, and was hanging out with drug dealers over there, and in Berkeley, going to see the Grateful Dead. I was a hippie, basically, trucking along by thumb the whole way, And then when I came back from that, I decided to get jobs with my girlfriend, and we decided to save our money and try to homestead up in British Columbia in the mountains, way in the bush. 30 miles into the mountains at the base of the Wales Grey Provincial Park near Clearwater, British Columbia, where we lived in a cabin with no facilities. And I always wondered, we had no facilities. We had a creek outside, and we went through the winter there in that cabin that you could see through the cabin. But we had plenty of heat because we had 2 wood stoves in it, and we had a weasel that was running around the inside of it that I wondered if I needed to try to shoot, because I was trying to hunt for a living, because I believed if I was going to eat it, I was going to hunt it, and I didn't want to become a vegetarian. And I was basically off all the drugs at that point, and the draft dodgers hated that I was off the drugs. Not hated that, but they wanted me to smoke pot with them all the time. The draft dodgers that had moved up there from the United States that were now married to or living with Canadian women, and that became my base of friends in British Columbia. And then I got it in my head that in order to be able to stay in British Columbia and find a piece of land to buy and homestead on, that I needed to leave the country in order to come back again, and then come back with a new lease, even though I didn't go up there with a visa or a green card or any kind of legitimate reason to stay in the country. I was literally a tourist living in the country illegally, and I was working illegally too. I worked for the provincial park on road maintenance and hauling water, and I made leather goods, and I sold it to people, made hats and stuff, and belts and purses that my girlfriend decorated, and we sold them to locals and in shops in Clearwater, and also where we moved to Oregon. I guess I'm going into a bit of history here, but so I guess I'm not going to get to. Well, then, just to make that story a little bit, just to put a period on that story, I ended up going over the border into the United States with my British Columbia truck that I bought in British Columbia, and tried to come right back in. There's not going to be any record, and I was even using an assumed name in Canada so that my name wouldn't be tainted. Anyway, when I came back in, they refused me 2 or 3 times. And I kept on going to a different border crossing. Finally, we got in. And then some months later, I was apprehended. I think they took the license plate, and they were able to track me. That's how they found me, because they knew I got back in, because the border guards probably didn't communicate that immediately. But then when they probably shared information, which they probably didn't do more than once a day, that's when they found out that I had tried several times, and so that's how they got me, I think. And so what I think happened is that the next level put that thought in my head, to get my vehicle over to Oregon so that I could be there when T&O came there. Now, the way that T left her vehicle, which I've got a minute left to talk about, it says here, it says that the serpent cast a flood after the woman. That flood is the mind attack of thoughts that the woman, that T and Do both had to take and field because everybody was against them. Everybody hated them. Luciferians, the parents of all the kids, the adults that joined them, everybody. So what happened then is that the earth helped the woman, and Revelation 12:16, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. Now that expression of the mouth, the earth opening up her mouth, is an expression for dying. There's that song by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, "Lay down, my dear brother." Let's see, no, that's not the song. That was the Grateful Dead song. But it was the Crosby, Stills, Nash song that talks about that, about laying down your life, or the earth opening up their mouth. So I'll leave with that. That's the end of the broadcast. Good night.